A warm good morning to everyone. Now we are going to discuss about the methods also called as functions. So the syntax for defining a method is given over here. It may have all these, it may or may not have all these fields. It can start with access specifier. Already we saw access specifiers. There are various access specifiers like public, private, protected, and default. If we do not mention any access specifier, then it comes under the default access specifier. Public is accessible anywhere. So these are the access specifiers, and then followed by telling whether a method is a static or a non-static method. If it is a static method, we have to use the keyword static. If it is non-static, then we need not mention anything. Static means if it is a static method, remember we no need to create any object for that for or to call that method. We no need to create object in order to call that method. Followed by return type of the method, followed by the method name, and then arguments list inside the bracket. So this is an example. Here public is an access specifier, static. We say this do calculate method is a static, which means we no need to create object if you want to call this method. Void denotes this method does not return any value. And here the method name is do calculate. And these are the arguments that we use inside the bracket, value 1 and value 2 of integer type. And then we start defining the method by using that open parenthesis. And here we close that method. Remember the method name, the usual procedure to give the method name is following these two rules. That is the methods, if it consists of two words, then the first word should be in fully lowercase and the second word's first character in uppercase. And you should remember, you should not use space between the method names. All method names are also user defined names. It should hold the characteristics of the name, how you will name an identifier. Here method name is also an identifier name, so it must follow the rules. That is, white spaces should not be included. A keyword cannot be used as a method name. All these rules are applicable here for the method name. With additional thing, if you are going to use the method name in two words, the first word entirely in lowercase and then the second word's first character in uppercase, you should not use any space. So this is the syntax of defining a method. And here if you see, if you want to access a method similar to variable access, you can also access the method using the object name followed by dot operator and then the method name and then the arguments list. So this is how we can access or call the method. So if you see here inside a class, inside the class name, here it is Sam. So inside this class we have two methods defined, namely function 1 and then function 2. Function 1 does not return any value, hence we have given the return type as void. Function 2 is returning an integer value, hence we are using the int data type. And you can notice here both the methods does not have any arguments. First method does not return any value, whereas the second method is returning some integer value. Since we have given here as integer, obviously it must have a return statement which is returning an integer value. So this is how we define a method inside a class. Inside the class, we can define a methods like this. And if you want to access such methods inside a class, you can use the syntax object name dot method name followed by argument values. So here we are introducing the methods. So you can see a simple addition program. So here we have used the class name as add, and then we have two variables a and b, and then we have used a method add method which just adds two variables a and b and displays the output inside the method itself. So since we are displaying the output in the method itself, here we have the return type as void. If you see here, we have another class sample. Inside this class, these two are the remember, these two are the objects that are created for this add class. For this add class, we have created objects s1 and s2. So this and we are assigning the values. We have created actually two objects, S1 object and S2 objects. We have created two objects. So for the S1 object, we assign the AB values as 10, 20. For the S2 object, we assign the AB values as 30 and 40. And here here we call the method. Actually, here we call the method using those objects. Object name dot add. So the first object calls the add method. The control will go over here and it performs the summation, that is 10 plus 20, 30 will be returned. So 30 will be printed actually. And then next we call the add method using the second object. Using the second object, if we call the add method, then here the A and B value will be 30 and 40. So it prints as 70. So in this example, we have introduced the methods. We have used two objects, and using those two objects, we call the add method and we get two different addition values. So this is another example, just a simple change. That is here in the previous example, the method does not return any value, but here we are returning some integer value. Here we are returning some integer value. That is the only change over here. So as usual, here we had an add method with variables A and B, and we have an addition method which performs the summation and returns an integer value. And here the class sample is holding the object creation syntax here. So in this line, in these two lines, we have created two objects S1 and S2 for this add class. For this add class, we have created two objects S1 and S2. So using that object and using the dot operator, we are able to access the A and B variables. We are able to access this. We can't access this A and B variables directly. We are able to access only through using that object and the dot operator. So for the two objects, that is for S1 object, we have A and B values as 10, 20. For S2 object, we have A and B values 30 and 40. And in this line, we actually call the addition method, and then the return value is stored here in add1 variable. So this line performs the function call or method call S1 dot addition. So the control will go over here, and then we have AB values as 10 and 20. So the sum 30 will be returned over and stored in the variable add1. So it prints the 30 here, and then repeatedly using the second object we call the addition method, and now A and B values are 30 and 40, and the 70 is returned now to that to this add1 variable, and then we print this add1 variable. Now it prints as 70. We are using a single variable, no problem. The latest value which is provided for the add1 will be finally available. So this is an example for method with return type. So thus we have seen how we have included a method inside a class and how we can access a method. Also, we initially saw the method definition. So in this video, first we started with the syntax of method definition and how we give the methods inside the class, and then examples as how to invoke or call the methods inside the class. And also we saw method without return type as well as with return type. Thank you everyone.